we doing out there? I think this is audible. Yep, that's working. All systems are go. Let's see if we can't finish revising this page. Got some updates to make to it as well. Get that other page up just so I can reference a few things. There we go. Good evening. Hey, everybody coming in. Anybody on the other areas? Oh, not yet. As far as I can tell, anyway. Hand up. Good evening. made this a lot easier for me to see by simply moving the, turning off the overhead light, just leaving on the side ones. So it's a lot less glary. I'm also sitting sideways in my chair. Let's see, how did I put that other long ruler down at? Let's get that out of the way. Use a few more lines. Over on the left. Good. Everybody coming in? Mm-hmm. Alright, I guess we'll go back over to music. spot to put my stuff down at. everybody. You know, usually I don't mind talking while working. I just, you know, the way people kind of come and go, it can be a bit of a challenge to keep a conversation going. Ruler. Just further up here. That continues down. And that should be further out. Good evening. Who do we got in here tonight, anyway? Make sure we take attendance, right, before class gets out. Still about an hour and a half left. So, you know, be sure to pay attention. Alright, look who's finally showing up for class. Mr. Chosen profession is challenging. Actually, it should be over here, huh? And that should be there, and then it should be over here further, huh? Alright, we'll move it. Hey, Bob, what you doing? Alright, that should be over here ish. That hides that a little bit. And then we need to get the other ruler out. Move this whole thing over. Because I was not paying attention properly. And I could probably go up here. Much better. Yeah, that worked much better. And then you get the shadows going back over there. And about that angle. You're going to come out of here. Like that, but these will continue all the way over. Yeah, and that'll make for a better silhouette. Yeah, much better silhouette. feel a lot more complete. There's the table right there. I think. Feeling better about this space. I appreciate that. It's very kind. Just trying to revise this a little bit from where I left it before, since I'm trying to go back and finish it. Top part. Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. I've just been going through a whole big process of finishing projects. This is one of them, but just posted a bunch of stuff to my portfolio site to update it. And some of them are projects that have been effectively done for a couple of years. Some are 3D and need to be rendered, but yeah, it's always a challenge. Is like, because part of probably run into when you have your own projects you're working on is it's hard to say exactly when you're done, right? Because it's your own thing. It's not like you have a client or a teacher necessarily telling you that, oh, now you are done, or here is a due date. Because in theory, you can work on any of these things for, ever. There's always, fixes you can make or adjustments or, the things that you learn along the way. that can inform what you've already done, and sometimes you want to make those changes. And that's definitely a big challenge. For me, the thing I find when I'm trying to finish things is I have a little bit of a kind of a process that I wash all of my work through, and I kind of look at it and I think when I feel like I'm mostly done with it or I'm effectively done, I'll let it sit for a little bit. For personal projects, let it sit for a little bit. Sometimes I'll even when I'm doing that, I'll send it off to friends whose opinions I think are very, very helpful for me, and see what feedback they give. But even if I'm just working on it on my own, I like to set it aside for a few days to a week, and then when I look at it, I try to see if there's 3 to 5 things that immediately stand out to me. And I stop with those 3 to 5. That's like the first ones that I see. And then once I see what those 3 to 5 things are, then I fix those before I look at really anything else. There might be some exceptions to that, but that's the general pattern. So I'll find those 3 to 5 things, fix them before dealing with anything else, because those are the first things that kind of jump out at me. And then once I'm done with that, then I'll do that again. So I'll stop and I'll look at it and I'll say, what are 3 to 5 specific things I can do to finish it, and do those things. And then when I kind of run out, again, I like to show it to friends and things, of course, along the way, or mentors. But once I kind of run out of those 3 to 5 things, I feel like I'm really done with it, unless somebody has anything else to add. As long as it's can push it forward, and then I'll consider it done. Plus, I always have 10 other things I want to do anyway. But part of it is just kind of identifying what it's for. It's like if you're doing a concept 3D thing. Vampires in the chat. You're doing some. So it's just kind of my own little process, and it kind of helps me stay focused. So if I'm trying to get things done, that's one way. It's just making sure it stays on target. That whatever it is I'm trying to accomplish. Yeah, shading's important. I prefer to call it value in dealing with light and shadow, but. A lot of what happens with the shading and illustration is really just developing your sense for silhouettes, and then making sure it looks like it works with those silhouettes, that the actual lighting works with it, because the silhouettes can frame the different elements in your scene in effective ways, even if it doesn't fit exactly what would happen in a photograph. So, but it's and the thing is, my situation's a little bit different than most other people's. Like, I've been teaching drawing and painting and illustration for starting 20 years ago. My first figure drawing class that I taught, and so part of what I have to do is part of my job is I have to help other people solve their problems. So I'm always looking for ways to come up with steps to help the students out. Because a lot of times with artists, what they do is they kind of intuit a lot. So they have a feeling or a sense of how things are supposed to work, and they work on them until that happens. And that's fine for most artists, but it doesn't really work for, I think, teachers as much. Like telling a student to make it look more cool doesn't really help the student very much. And so having steps like that and a number of other things that I do with my students kind of helps them figure things out, I think, hopefully in a better way. I do anticipate that most of them will forget most of what they're taught in terms of step-by-step stuff, but hopefully the principle of things kind of sticks with them. And so steps like that I think are really helpful. So when students are like, because I like to have students be able to finish their own work. Like I don't want to have to tell them, oh, now it is done. I want them to really see for themselves that it's done. And so having steps like that's really helpful, and that way it kind of gets them on their own feet, as it were. So that's generally kind of my thought pattern. Yeah, I think the feeling is really important, but you also have to understand maybe why the feeling isn't working. And that's where you have things that exist in reality. Like there's that thought in your head about how you want things to feel, and that's all fine and good. The trick is taking that feeling and making it into something physical on the paper that other people can experience, not just your own inner delusions. Because a lot of times we convince ourselves that something's happening when it's not. So so like I try to set things up really loose at the very beginning, then I tighten in, then I can loosen back again. But as long as it's kind of staying with the with what it needs, then it's going to work. Yep, no problem. Yep, of course, that's what I'm here for. Hopefully. As long as I'm able to, I hope. Good evening, everybody coming in. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate that. Hope to stem the wound of Instagram changing its algorithms all the time. Oh, this is one of my students? I confess I do not recognize the name. I had a few former Ringling students, pop in to spy on the teacher, former teacher, I guess, for them. I think one of them's graduated, I think, a year ago, and the other one is still in school. Daisha and Jordan. Oh, you are not a student. Oh, okay. Jay is not a student of mine. But Toll apparently is, I think. Ah, Echo. I see. You're not Kiwi. You get to observe me learning new things here too. I've never really done any comic stuff, so this is an experiment for me to do here. Who's Jay? So I'm making a 7-page setup here of the opening scene of Blade Runner. So I found the original script online, and using that as a I see. So I started this page back in June, and then I got busy finishing my little camper project, which is officially done now. So I'm gonna have to get ready for school. And so coming back and revising. This is the first page I did, but I'm going back to revise it. I have another page up there that I just finished up the other day, and then get to the other 5. They've already been planned out, and I printed them out in the blue line, the rough versions of them, and then it's just me going through to work them out. So hopefully get this one done so I can start on another one soon. Yes, this is graphite. and then I'll scan it in and probably ink over the blue lines later on. Yeah, so this is actually if you I'm gonna do a little pull this off and do a little table tour. First off, there's the dog. But the table I've got here, it's up on an angle, and I found this full-sized drafting table. They're normally like $700 or something, and I found it for $100. I just had to disassemble it and bring it home. And anyway, I got a sheet of metal from a place called Metal Mart, and I made a bunch of things like this bridge to attach, so these just stick to the table. And then got a number of other ones like this one right here. It's a leftover from my camper build project that I can use when I have a thick sketchbook. So I can put the sketchbook next to this, and then I don't have to like lean on it weird. Yeah, so it's normally it's like a $700 table if you go online to buy a new one. But yeah, it was some construction company was getting rid of one on Facebook Marketplace, and I was like, oh, sold. Yeah, so he's flopped over on the floor over there. He's got a bed right under the table, but I think it's a little warm today. Yeah, so it's a pretty simple tool. I mean, you could probably buy a bridge. I think they make them that you can buy, but I just glued on a piece of wood at the end. This is just the same type of wood just glued on down here, and then just keep it above my stuff. So it's funny because I did these little bridges, and I got this metal thing just as I was finishing my little camper project, and then took off for a week-long trip into nowhere. So I was excited. Oh, I got this all set up and ready to use it, and then I took off for a week, and yeah, I think it was 100 degrees today. And tomorrow will be in the 90s, and it looks like it's working its way back down over the next couple days. End of August, right? Dog days of summer. But it's funny because one of the things I wanted to come up here for away from where I was before is variation on seasons. But I think it does get hotter here than it does down in where I was in Florida. Just a lot more humid down there. Humid here too, but not nearly as much as it is down there. But of course it does get colder here too, so. Oh, the camper project. So I have this my Xterra. I can show if you go to there's a whole Instagram for it. All right, here. Xteravich. So there's a whole build. There's a whole I have an Instagram that's dedicated to the build. But I have a 2006 Nissan Xterra, and I converted it to a micro camper. And so it's been a long-term project. I started researching it, I guess 5 or 6 years ago. A friend of mine, he's a really great landscape still life. They call it perceptual painter, and Aaron Thompson, he teaches at PCAD, and he mentioned to me, because we went down to see some museums in DC, and we're using Google Maps, and he mentioned to me, he said, hey, have you thought about like doing a van life conversion for going landscape painting, because we go landscape painting all the time. And I was like, I hadn't thought about doing it. I should probably look into that. And we're using Google Maps, and when I got home after our little road trip that day, it was like a 2-hour drive and then 2 hours back, but when I got home, my YouTube was full of van life videos. So I guess you know, Google does listen in while you're using their apps. And I spent the next 2 years just like researching and thinking about it. And pulled the trigger in 2020, so towards the end of the pandemic, and started gutted the rear of my SUV, and turned it into this micro camper. So I did one version. I spent that 2020 summer. I did a really intensive. It was 11 weeks full time, 6 to 7 days a week. You know, weather permitting, in Florida in my backyard, working on it, and did an initial rough build, and used that for about a year and a half, and then last year in the summer I started doing the finished build that uses the hardwood. So these pieces are leftovers from that, so I've got some walnut and cherry and I just forgot the name for the other one. It's not mahogany, it's I'll remember it a bit, but it's 3 types of wood for a lot of the cabinets and surfaces and top surfaces. Yeah, so that's why I gave myself a little carpal tunnel problem last summer, a year ago summer, I guess now. But I spent basically about 2 months in the Ringling wood shop working on this, and the guys there are really, really helpful in the wood shop. Like, they helped me learn how to, because I'd never processed or used hardwoods before, and so they were really helpful in educating me on how to handle all of that, because I was mostly just rebuilding the furniture. I had pretty much all of the stuff installed and how it would fit and all of that's required there. And got that all mostly done last summer. There was a few things left to do, and so I worked on that this summer. So I was only going to do part of it this summer. There's like a few little things left to do. You know, it still takes a couple weeks to finish it off, but there's a number of things to finish. And then my dog, he hurt himself, and so we suddenly couldn't go anywhere for like 2 weeks because he had to stay put while he was healing. And finished it off. So there's like little things that I still want to do, but all the things that I originally intended to do are now complete. So it feels really good. There's a whole bunch of stuff I was doing with it. Like I did a bunch of engine kind of updates and repairs, and then I swapped out the suspension, put in a new one over a Labor Day weekend. Mostly hard just taking stuff off. It would have been like a 1-day thing, but there's a lot of fused bolts in different places, and then there's all the electrical work that I did for it and the plumbing. It was a really interesting kind of a project to do. Yeah, my dog, he broke one of his claws, cracked all the way to the quick. So if you imagine your own fingernail cutting all the way up into the skin, and then you're walking on it, that's what he did. It's an expensive and long trip at the vet, because it's not like it's a a life-threatening injury. It's just very painful. So they had to put him under and carefully remove a lot of the nail, and then wrap it up in a bandage. And for some reason, they didn't put his cone on until after he woke up. And thank you there, Inking Graphite. So he was like, having a panic from waking up from being, drugged. And they couldn't get the cone on him because he's just freaking out. He wasn't like violent or anything, he was just scared. Yeah. And I think I did mention it. But he never actually even put it on. He never was chewing on his feet or anything the whole time as I was watching him. So he's all good now. But he's all fine now. But he was kept him drugged for about a week and all that stuff. He was very disappointed because he's like, those people at the vet, they were so nice, until they weren't. He had a hard time, flopping around on his bandaged foot, of course, because it doesn't work quite right when it's not your own foot there. So, did find out I get to present my Xterra camper at the Overland Expo. They have one of their major events happens here in Virginia, and first week of October over in Arrington, which is about 2 hours drive from here. So I get to get in for free and do some tours and all of that. I'm trying to figure out a way of winging this kind of whole thing into the research aspect of my position here. Need to converse with people to figure that out. Jason keeps telling me that I need to publish something with it, and I'm not sure what that would entail, because I don't know, that a publisher would necessarily pick it up, but I think they should, obviously, but I doubt that there's a mass market interest in micro Xterra campers, especially since they stopped making them back in 2016. But if I'd done like a 1980s, 1990s Land Cruiser or Bronco, that'd probably be a little more popular. I mean, that could be, some people, I belong to some, Xterra Facebook groups, which I actually found a new use for Facebook when I started this project, because there's, van life DIY groups and ones related to my specific vehicle groups and things like that. But some people had asked if I had plans for it, like plans I could sell And the thing is you know, if you want to do one like mine, you have to completely gut the interior. So the only stuff that remains, thank you Jay for the follow there. But the only thing that remains is the front cab. Like everything behind that, I removed, and I don't imagine there's more than a handful of people that would be willing to do that to their. You know, it's probably their daily driver for a lot of people. I could see like a business where those get designed and built. You know, where maybe I handle the design side since I have enough experience to understand how they work. You know, maybe there's builders that'll be at the expo. I camped out there last year, so I did attend it last year. But this time I'm going as an exhibitor in the DIY area. So, and I think doing tours of it will maybe count towards my research activity, even if it's not the expected kind of thing. But yeah. Because like I'm hired as a concept art professor, and so usually you think of, you know, entertainment media as being the typical area. And it is nice, you know. I wish it had better gas mileage, but I actually took a big hit on gas mileage when I put larger tires on it this year. I lost like 2 miles per gallon, which on an Xterra is quite a bit. It went from like, you know, 16.5 to 17 miles per gallon to 14. But yeah, it's nice to have the extra, you know, couple inches of lift when, you know, if you don't get the airflow on there properly. Well, you know, I you know, definitely plan for next year. Um, the gas tank, I think it's about 18 gallons. So, you know, if I'm driving on the freeway across country, which I've done, you know, I have to refill it every, you know, 4-ish hours, depending on what the wind is like. It actually got like 10 miles per gallon going across Kansas because the wind was so intense. What is nice is like I love this. I like to set up camp. I literally just park, and if I'm in the woods, you know, I just pull out a chair and set it up. Or if I'm in, like I've camped out in cities before too, and you know, just on the streets, you know, and I just pull over and crack the windows and put up my little window screens, and yeah, I can zonk out there. The dog has his own spot, but he usually moves from there pretty quick to lay behind my legs. You know, it's got a fridge and a freezer, well, fridge freezer combo. I have a shower inside of it. The sleeping and really kind of living area is really only like the open area is like cot sized basically, with some shelves on the side that take up a considerable amount of space. So it's not like a major van built where you can actually walk around a little bit. You have to kind of sit inside. But I really just love that I can, you know, it's hardly noticeable that it's a camper at all, and you'd have to really know what you're looking for to spot anything unusual about it. and I'd consider moving into it here in Richmond. I'd have to, now that it's done, I just said I'd have to rent a office space or something where or I could work in a studio situation with the dog. It's a place to put the dog during the day when I'm teaching. But I'd consider that seriously now that it's all the way done. Just to do it, even if it's just for like 6 months or a season or something like that. Just for the experience. Cause yeah, it's totally livable inside, so that's it's interesting. Well, I think I probably could get permission. I just have to say, I need the emotional support or something. Abuse the system, but so it's probably justifiable. I just need a dog. I just need a note from a doctor that says I really need to have my dog with me. He is a bit of a distraction in the classroom, though. So, not that he's super, hyper or anything, but he attracts a lot of attention from students. But I might bring him in and during one of when we start the creature drawing stuff, go over an animal anatomy, and that'd be a justification to bring him in. Have to make sure it's on a Tuesday, right? It's a long day for a little dog, though, too, to be at school. Like, he thinks he can handle all day at school, and I think he doesn't realize how long a day it is for him. It's a lot of social activity. Yeah, well, he's not. He doesn't really bark. He's not very noisy, so he's super chill. If you're like an opossum in the yard or something, he might bark at that, but yeah. Yeah, we have the problem with the lack of doors. Well, the school really needs to sit down and get that building renovated. I know there's budgetary concerns, but it should be less expensive to renovate that space than construct that giant building in front of the Com Arts building. Well, I think one of the things maybe they can argue for the STEM side is there's probably donors involved. and donors often, they get pulled into majors like that over the art ones. So I understand why it happens, even if I think it's unfair, but update this. But yeah, it's not fair. But the other thing too with art classes in general is you don't really need a lot. It's helpful to have some computer labs. But you don't really need as much. It would be nice to have walls and doors. Well, usually if you want arts donors, it's usually some wealthy person who, like one of the things that happened with Ringling where they get some of the donors for like buildings, projects, and things like that is or a scholarship. Someone usually will have like a child, usually a daughter, who passes away, who's an art student or an art lover, and so they want to, cherish that memory by supporting things that person loved. And so I think what you need to have happen is you need to murder an art student that has rich parents. You just can't let them know it was an art student that did it. And then that would probably get that going. Especially if they're a comm art student. And then we'll get the money that way. So, but that's where you see a lot of like art donor stuff comes in, or maybe the guy's the guy's a widower and his wife liked to paint. Maybe she was never very good at it or whatever, but she still loved the arts, and so you convince her to give convince him to give the program a lot of money so that he has this permanent memorial to his deceased wife or something like that. And that's again usually where that kind of money comes from for art programs. So I'm going to thicken this thing up a little bit. So it's just we like to have certain kind of outcomes, but a lot of times those are based off of realities that fall outside of our control. And this happens at every institution. Every department wants more of something, and it becomes a question of how the university's applying its resources to the most effect that they think is the most valuable. Yeah, he's uh, usually around this time of night he gets a little SNACK, and so as that time approaches, he starts to remind me that it's nearly that time. So he's hanging out under my feet for a second. Yeah, it feels good, working on it, slowing down, trying to get it in there really nice as I can. Yeah, so yeah, he's got a schedule, right? He's got, it's how part of how you communicate with your pets is they come to expect things around a certain time of day, and so if it doesn't happen, it's it kind of throws them off a lot because that's what they can tell is supposed to happen. Yeah, he gets a piece of frozen broccoli at night. So which also is a word that he knows. I'm not sure why he likes that. It doesn't seem like a very dog thing to eat, but cooking some once, and he was like, "Hey, I want some of that." And I gave it to him, and he dropped it. It's like, "Eh," and then he picked it up again and ate it. Yeah, they got their, they like what they like, and they don't like what they don't like, just like people. So I found there's actually, if you just look up lettering comics, there's a lot that's out there, and they'll show you exactly what to do. It's not that hard. Whereas, of course, computer things you could do. You do it all on the computer. But I was just kind of, trying the learning process. I thought I would try doing it on my own. But you get one of these. It's called Ames Lettering Guide, and they're not very expensive. A few dollars at the art supply shop. And there's a bunch of tutorials on YouTube, and you basically get it lined up with a ruler, and there's a handful of, this bottom row is one that gets used for putting in 3 lines at a time. You just kind of put your pencil in and drag side to side, and then the main thing that says usually what they do is they kind of lean the letters forward, and that tends to be the right size for American comics. There's different size you can do on here if you're doing bigger or smaller things, but that's the size that generally fits the American comic book size. So that was the major thing I saw. And so I thought, give it a try. Most art supply shops will have them. They're usually over in the drafting section with all the rulers. They probably buy them when they open the store and then never sell them. But yeah, I didn't either. So I was curious about it just because I've been looking into it, and I saw that. I was like, oh, yeah, you can get on Amazon or whatever too if you want, but they have them here at the at the Plaza Art Supply shop across the street from my classes. Yeah, if you just look up, how to hand letter comic book page, there's a lot. It takes like 5 minutes to learn how to do. What are we doing for time? 9:30. Okay, another 30 minutes. Yeah, because I know they have comics classes here. It's not a class I ever got to take because they didn't have it at my school. But I have a lot of comics people working for VCU, like Scott and Morgan. It's funny, I actually have a bunch of Scott's graphic novels on Comixology because I was buying a bunch of those when I was living in Hong Kong, since they didn't have a lot of the American stuff there. His Atomic Robo. I was like, wait a second, that's that guy. They may have you do it on the computer. I'm not sure how it gets done here, but It's not hard to do. I think it's I think you can add your own personality, and you can make your own fonts. There are ways like writing out all the letters individually, and then you make your own font with it. But I've been kind of looking at styles in comics, and I think I kind of prefer all the handwritten stuff, because it happens when you do it in your own. Even if you create your own handwritten one on the computer, it just becomes the same letters over and over again. And I think being able to write it out kind of gives you that opportunity to give it your own personality as you work through it. So there's a lot of stuff out there. So yeah. It's a test project for me to do. I want to do a couple of these, couple of scripts based on others, a couple of comics based on other scripts. So this is the, be able to read the text. You can see it comes from opening scene of Blade Runner. So I just took the original script and I'm drawing the scene, that opening scene where the investigator is questioning Leon. I'm kind of designing it as I go. So do 7 pages, and then get these done and move on to something else. This is page 2 and 3. Well, it's page 3. Well, I have a big desk. So I have a large ruler. I think it's 30, I think it's a full meter actually. But actually can do proper perspective. It's not exact proper perspective here, but I have this cutting board I have actually has the angles that are used for perspective right here. And so I placed this. This was lower down before, and so it's enough room where I can put the vanishing points pretty far. So I've got one vanishing point over here, and the other one is right there. And so I could set up a little bit more proper if I want to do some perfect squares on the floor or something like that, but I decided not to worry about this for that because it's not a major part of it. But that's what I did. I've actually taught perspective a lot over the years, and for those that really want to, you can go learn all of the exact precise way to do perspective over on my teaching site at myartprofessor.com. But it takes some work too. Really, the thing with precise perspective, you really need to do, there's like 4 or 5 things that you do to do it really precise. You just do them over and over and over again in a little bit different ways. The setup for a proper perspective, it seems complicated. Maybe it is the first couple times you do it, but once you kind of learn how to do it, it takes like 15 minutes to set up, even with traditional media. Or I do it on the computer, yeah, it might take even less time, like 5 minutes or something. So it's it looks a lot scarier than it is. It is time consuming. So you have to pay attention to what you're doing. But it's not as bad as people kind of make it out to be. So, but yeah, it's definitely worth learning, I think. These other ones I'm doing much more simply. I'm mostly just keeping the lines parallel on these smaller panels. I'm using a basic layout as far as the panel grids go. minutes left before I shut this off. All right, 10 p.m. So I think we're going to call it there. for the night. Probably be back tomorrow. I will have to see. But again, thanks everybody that came in, and we'll catch you next time. Make sure I don't roll over my dog as I'm backing up.